more than 70 years later, Elizabeth Short's case remains one of the most chilling and confusing mysteries in Los Angeles history, not because of what happened, but because of what we still don't know. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're exploring one of the most enduring, unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. It is a story that has inspired countless books, films, and theories, yet the truth remains just out of reach. While the name, the Black Dahlia, is famous around the world, the woman behind that name often gets lost in the shadows of her own legend. As we peel back the layers of 1940s Los Angeles, we find a case filled with strange clues, conflicting details, and unanswered questions that still puzzle investigators, historians, and true crime researchers to this day. But here's where the mystery deepens right from the start. The more we look into the official records, the more we realize that the public narrative and the actual investigation were two very different things. To understand why this case became such a phenomenon, we first have to understand the world Elizabeth Short lived in. Los Angeles in 1947 was a city of stark contrasts. The war was over, Hollywood was booming, and thousands of young people were flocking to the West Coast with dreams of stardom and reinvention. Elizabeth was one of them. Born in Massachusetts, she eventually made her way to California, driven by the same optimism that defined an entire generation. Historians believe she was much like any other young woman of her time. She loved movies, she enjoyed socializing, and she was trying to find her place in a rapidly changing world. Friends described her as polite and soft-spoken, a stark contrast to the sensationalized rumors that would later circulate in the press. But here is the strange part. Despite her fame after the fact, her life in Los Angeles was relatively quiet, which makes the sudden and tragic end to her story even more baffling to researchers. The timeline of the investigation begins in mid-January of 1947, when Elizabeth was discovered in a vacant lot in the Leimert Park neighborhood. We are going to skip the graphic details that usually accompany this part of the story, because what is truly important for the investigation is the lack of evidence found at the scene. Investigators noted almost immediately that the location where she was found was not where the crime had occurred. This seemingly simple fact created the first major hurdle for the Los Angeles Police Department. Without a primary crime scene, detectives were working backward, trying to trace her movements through a city that was adept at keeping secrets. Most people have never heard this part of the story, but the initial lack of forensic leads is what forced the police to rely heavily on the public for tips, a strategy that would eventually complicate the case more than anyone could have predicted. This leads us to the missing week, a period of time that continues to haunt investigators. Elizabeth was last seen on January 9th, but she wasn't found until the morning of January 15th. For decades, people have wondered who Elizabeth really was behind the headlines and where she was during those unaccounted days. Witnesses claimed to see her at various locations across the city, hotels, bars, and bus stations, but none of these sightings could be definitively confirmed. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air before reappearing days later. If this case still captivates us today, it's because something about that missing week feels unfinished. It represents a void in the timeline that no amount of detective work has ever been able to fill, leading to rampant speculation about who she was with and why she never reached out to her family or friends during that time. As the investigation ramped up, the media storm that followed changed American crime reporting forever. The press nicknamed her the Black Dahlia, a moniker that Elizabeth may never have actually used in her lifetime, but one that stuck instantly. The newspapers of the era were locked in a fierce circulation war, and they sensationalized every aspect of her life to sell copies. This intense media reaction created a unique problem for the police. Reporters were often arriving at scenes before detectives, trampling evidence, and withholding information to get exclusive scoops. But this next detail complicates everything. The newspapers printed so much misinformation that the police found it nearly impossible to separate genuine tips from fiction. The public fascination was so intense that the LAPD was overwhelmed with calls, letters, and theories, creating a chaotic environment where the truth was buried under an avalanche of newsprint. The sheer number of suspects in this case is staggering, and this is often cited as the main reason it remains unsolved. Over the years, hundreds of people were considered persons of interest. Some were local gangsters, others were businessmen, and some were even medical professionals. Think about this for a moment. At one point, the police had a list of over 20 viable suspects, yet they could never find the one piece of evidence needed to secure an indictment. Among the most famous theories involves a prominent doctor named George Hodel, whose own son later became a homicide detective and wrote extensively about his suspicions regarding his father. Other theories point to local handymen or transient figures who were passing through the city. However, records show that despite extensive interviews, surveillance, and background checks, the district attorney never felt they had a strong enough case to take to trial against anyone. One of the most bizarre aspects of the Black Dahlia investigation was the phenomenon of false confessions. In the weeks and months following the discovery, dozens of people contacted the police claiming to be the killer. This detail still puzzles researchers today. It speaks to the strange psychological impact the case had on the public. Police had to waste valuable time and resources vetting these confessions, only to find that the vast majority were from people seeking attention or suffering from mental health issues. It created a needle in a haystack scenario where the real killer, if they were ever on the radar, could easily slip through the cracks amidst the noise of false leads. And just when police thought they were getting closer, the case took a stranger turn with the arrival of taunting letters sent to the press, allegedly from the killer, though their authenticity has been debated by experts for years. The investigation also highlighted the limitations of 1940s forensics. There was no DNA testing, no surveillance cameras, and no digital databases. Detectives relied on fingerprints, handwriting analysis, and old-fashioned shoe leather police work. Many researchers point out that if the crime had occurred today, it might have been solved in a matter of days. But in 1947, the transient nature of Los Angeles, combined with the lack of technology, allowed the perpetrator to vanish. Furthermore, the cultural pressure on the LAPD to solve the case quickly led to rushed interrogations and a focus on suspects that fit a certain narrative, potentially causing them to overlook quieter, less obvious leads. It is a classic example of how external pressure can sometimes derail a delicate investigation. As the years turned into decades, the file on Elizabeth Short remained open, but the leads grew cold. The case transitioned from an active manhunt to a historical curiosity. Yet the theories never stopped coming. Every few years, a new book or documentary claims to have finally solved the mystery, presenting a new suspect or a newly discovered piece of evidence. However, the official stance remains that the case is unsolved. This persistence of mystery is what keeps Elizabeth's story alive. It has become part of the folklore of Los Angeles, a dark chapter in the city's history that serves as a reminder of the fragility of justice. But here is the reality we must face. With all the witnesses now gone and physical evidence degraded or lost, it is highly unlikely that a definitive legal resolution will ever be reached. In the end, Elizabeth Short became a symbol of a mystery that refuses to fade, a story shaped not only by tragedy, but by the unanswered questions that still echo through Los Angeles today. She was a young woman with dreams and ambitions, whose life was cut short in a way that forced a nation to look into the abyss. While we may never know the name of the person responsible, remembering Elizabeth as a human being, rather than just a headline, is perhaps the only justice available after all this time. If you enjoy deep dives into unsolved cases and historical mysteries, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.